Et tu, Brute. The final word spoken by Julius Caesar in the Ides of March. He has been stabbed 6 times. And then he turns to Brutus, his best friend, his confidant, his lover, because everyone in Rome was fucking. He turns to him and he says, Et tu, Brute. My English teacher told me that he was stern, stubborn, defiant till his death, and explained that this was his way of being like, oh, you as well. You have also betrayed me. You rat bastard. He didn't say that verbatim. I added the rat bastard part. But I've been thinking, over the years, what if that was wrong? I mean, this can be interpreted so many different ways. I mean, the literal translation is, and you, Brutus. What if it wasn't a period? It wasn't an exclamation point. It was always intended to be a question mark. He's looking at him and he's saying, and what is your answer? Have you also betrayed me? And what if he was sad? What if there were tears welling up in his eyes? What if in this final moment it wasn't necessarily a question? What if he was pleading? Please, please, Brutus, not you. My body has already failed me, but my soul will never rest if you find it in you to plunge that dagger into my body. See, without changing a single word, you can completely change the meaning of the entire sentence just by conveying it with a different tone. And that's why one of the biggest tools that any writer has in their kit is perspective. Not just what you say, but how you say it. Let me propose to you an experiment. You go out onto the street, and everyone who walks by, you ask them if they will participate. You don't have any screening process at all. You just keep asking everybody until 100 people say yes. You take those 100 people, you put them in the room, you make them stand in a circle. And you put a Buzz Lightyear toy in the middle of that circle, and you tell them, draw this. What do you think are the odds that you'll find any two identical drawings? See, for my math, if you did the experiment correctly and it's truly at random, 995 times out of 1,000, you will not find any two identical drawings. Why? Because there are some people who get to see the front of the toy. Some people see it from behind. Some people see it from the side. Some people, even though they're standing right next to each other, hey, one of them is way shorter than the other. So they're drawing it from a different angle. The shadows will look a little different. Some people will be professional artists. They'll be inspired by Picasso, Van Gogh, Rembrandt. Some people will be out here with fucking oil paintings, acrylics. Some people can't even draw a coherent stick figure. And then there's also the part of personal preference. Even if you have two people standing right next to each other, there's two people with the exact same height, looking at the exact same angle. They have the exact same teachings. They still might decide to draw it differently. A lot of people, when you tell them, hey, draw the toy will take up the entire page. It'll just be a picture of the toy. Some people might decide, hey, the toy's going to be a little tiny thing at the bottom of the page, and the real picture is what's behind the toy. You told me to draw what I see. See a bunch of artists over there. I'm drawing their shoes. I'm drawing their legs. Some of them are wearing ripped jeans. Some of them are dressed a little fancier. This guy's got on slacks. This girl's got on shorts. And you just see a picture of a bunch of artists furiously scribbling away while staring down at this toy. It is true when they say that every story has been told before. It is true that every movie you've ever watched in your life, you can pretty much sum up with a single word. Action, comedy, romance. It is true that if you genuinely want to cook something from scratch, you have to go back in time to reinvent the cow. It is true that every story that can be told has been told, recycled over and over again. It is true. So, how do you tell a story that's different from all the ones that have been told? At the end of the day, that's what perspective is. You have to be able to tell a story that no one else can. That's why it is so important for an artist to be able to find their voice, because no one else sees the world quite the way that you see it, because no one else has lived the life that you have lived. No one else has your perspective, and therefore, hopefully, no one else can tell the story that you can tell. But while that might be one of the most important things when it comes to actually telling the story well, you can't tell a story if you don't have a story to tell. So how do you come up with it? That's why, while perspective is important and it's a huge detail, the biggest, most amazing thing that any writer can have is exactly silence. Silence is the key to creativity. I'm going to tell you something that you might not understand right away, so we'll circle back to it, but I got to say it first. Imagination is the brain masturbating. So your brain loves input. It loves new sights. It loves new sound. It wants information. It craves it. That's why it is so easy to get caught up in doom scrolling. Your brain wants input. It wants new information. So, if it is not getting information, if it is not being stimulated by external sources, do you know what it does? It stimulates itself. Like I said before, imagination is the brain masturbating. It is not getting the external stimulation that it craves, so it stimulates itself. It digs through your memories, every sight you've ever seen, every sound you've ever heard, every memory you have, every show you've watched, every song you've heard, and it just overanalyzes it to death, starts remixing it like a DJ, looking at it from every perspective, remixing it until it feels like something completely brand new. There's no such thing as an original thought, because every thought you've ever had is a combination of every other thought you've had. It's just been spun around in like a collider or some shit. What are those things with the medical labs, with the blood and shit that just spin it really around and separate it? I don't know what that's called, but that's what that is. That's what your brain does sometimes. It's not necessarily creating new. Matter can't be created or destroyed, but it can be looked at, remixed, and just completely transformed into something that feels entirely new. So if you really want to improve as a storyteller, as a creator, the rightest way, the quickest way, the truest way is to just learn to be okay with silence. Learn to be okay with being bored off your ass, because it is in the silence that creativity thrives.